guest today is the Chief Procurement Officer for the City of Chicago. His department brings the city's 44 departments more than $2 billion worth of goods and services annually. This department also oversees the all-important Women and Minority Business Enterprise Program. Prior to heading the city's procurement department, our guest today was Executive Director of the Chicago Public Building Commission. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree from Northern Illinois University and his law degree from IIT Chicago Kent College of Law. Our guest today and his wife Kelly are the proud parents of 3 girls and live on the south side of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the City Club of Chicago the Chief Procurement Officer of the city, Montel Gayles. Montel?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I tell you, it feels good to be among family. You know, as I look across the room, there are a lot of people that I know. I'd like to thank you all for coming out to see little old me. I really appreciate that. Let me, by way of introduction too, because I would be remiss if I didn't do this. There are really 3 things or 3 bodies that I need to thank for this opportunity. Of course, I must thank the premier public forum organization, the City Club, for allowing me this opportunity. Jay, thank you, and City Club family, thank you very much for the invite today. I appreciate that. And let's clap for them, please. And for any of you that is running a business or is involved in city government, you know the importance of having good people around you to make you successful. You can't do all this stuff by yourself. There's no way in the world that I can handle. I think Jay just mentioned, I'm going to get a little bit more into that, $2 billion worth of contracts. I don't do that by myself. You need a quality staff. You need people that you can trust, people that have integrity, etc. And I have my staff here, and I want to give special recognition to Judy Martinez, my first deputy, for the work that she does. And please stand, please stand. Please, please. Stand up, stand up. In the neighborhood, they say, those are my peeps right there. Those are my peeps. And last but not least, certainly not least, I have to recognize the mayor of the city of Chicago for the opportunity to allow me to stand here. Yes. Yes. Without question. You know, this is my second cabinet opportunity. A lot of people have come up to me and congratulated me. Montel, great, congrats. This is my second opportunity. I understand what the measurement is here. I know what's at stake, and I thank the mayor for the opportunity. A lot of people don't know this, but I asked for this job. I asked for this job because I honestly believe that my chemistry can do some positive things for the city of Chicago and the people that we're trying to serve. So, by way of introduction, again, I thank everyone involved. Let's get into the presentation. The presentation really is going to have a couple different transitional points. We're going to talk about procurement, and forgive me because some of this will be expository in nature. I'm just going to be talking about what we do, how we do it, etc. Then we're going to deviate a tad bit and talk about certification. And if you allow me, I'm going to tell you why that's important if you don't already know. We're going to talk about that stick that we use, sometimes called compliance, in order to make sure that the commitments that vendors make, they actually follow through with those commitments. And then we're going to kind of couple 2 things together. We're going to look at some challenges that the department faces, and by no means, let me preface it right now, you're probably only going to see a few challenges on that piece of paper. That doesn't mean that's all the challenges we face. We face a lot of challenges. But that's where we are. Now, what is it? What do we do? We are the contracting authority for the city of Chicago. The mission is quite simple. We have to do all those things in a transparent environment so that people believe and know that the process is fair, that people have an equal opportunity, an equal chance to get whatever business the city of Chicago is trying to advance. We procure all of the goods and services for the city of Chicago. And as Jay mentioned earlier in his introduction, hey there, how are you? In his introduction, we're also responsible for the management of the MWBE program. Now, that's actually two of 5 programs that the city of Chicago certifies, and you're going to see as during the course of this presentation, I'm going to focus really on those 2 elements. And lastly, as I mentioned before, we also monitor those contracts to ensure that the compliance and commitments that have been derived with our compliance team and the vendor, that they're actually meeting those commitments. It goes without being said that the environment that we work in is it's a challenge. Okay? Those of you that have been around in the city long enough, and it probably takes only 90 days to figure this out. I think I've been here for 75. And you know that there is an interesting group of individuals that all have to be worked with in order to make sure that the Department of Procurement Services works. From elected officials, and I tip my hat to you all here in the room today, to citizens, everyday taxpayers, to the user departments that we service. And that's some 43 city departments that we service, including ourselves 44. Each one has their own view of how the process should work. Each one has their own view of how fast the product should be delivered to the door. And they're all right, because I'm of the firm belief that the customer is always right. Our task is to figure out how to change this thing called the Titanic so that we keep from hitting icebergs along the way, and that we make sure that the process is a fair one. Now, what did we do in 2007? We basically procured goods and services, darn near $3 billion worth of goods and services were procured. Another $500 million alone in contract modifications. And if you do quick math on that last bullet point, you'll see that nearly $1 billion was spent on the MWBE program. That represents about 33% of our contracts awarded last year were to the MWBE program. I think it's important that I note one other thing. As we talk about that number is simply a floor. It is not a ceiling. Okay? It is not a ceiling. Matter of fact, this might be a good opportunity, too, to talk about the program. And I'm going to touch on this a little bit more. A lot of times when I'm dealing with prime contractors, I get resistance. Resistance because they view the program as some sort of social service program. It's not a social service program. Certification, as we will see in some slides coming up, is here because we need to level the playing field. In our attempts to level the playing field, you'll see where our opportunities are. I like this particular slide because what it does is, and I hope all of you in the back can see this, and if not, I'll walk you through. These are the primary areas in which the city of Chicago purchases goods. A lot of times our focus, at least in recent years, has been on the construction side of that, because from an ethnic standpoint, we see certain groups not really participating on the construction end. But I'm here to tell you, and I want you all to be strong advocates of this, and I hope that this is something that is also translated when people view this on the CAN TV. There are multiple opportunities outside of construction in order to do business with the city of Chicago. Multiple opportunities to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, we have a responsibility as a department. I couldn't help last night, in preparing for this and doing some last-minute thought processes on what I would tell you today. I jumped on this thing the kids work on all the time. I think they call it the web. Yeah. My daughter's great at this thing. And I said that I wanted to take a look at some other jurisdictions that were doing some things and to see what they were involved in. And on that thing called the web, agencies like ours do a lot of research and reporting. I want to do that. I think I need to do that because we need to be better teachers of this process to all of you in this room, as well as the folks that may happen to watch this on TV, or the other folks that don't get into these types of meetings, but we need to go to them and show them, here's what we do on a year-to-year basis to spend your tax dollars, and here's how you can take advantage of this. So you may see this as a utilization chart, a procurement chart of activities for 2007. I look at this as an opportunity chart. Matter of fact, we'll probably have an opportunity chart that we'll use when we go out to the marketplace that will show in some sort of column approach, here's the good, and let's say for the sake of example, it's architecture and engineering. I want to show all the contracts, I want to show the minority and women participation in those areas, and I want people to be able to see, oh, that's where my company fits, that's where I can make some money. That's important. That's important. And as we transition to talk about the importance of that, and I mentioned that there would be some stark transitions, certification is key. I started to mention before that this is not a social service program. Certification as a concept is here because there are individuals, either through ethnic affiliation or through gender, that have been shown through statistical or anecdotal evidence to have been discriminated in a marketplace. So these have been put in place so that we can level the playing field. Now, with that said, this isn't a hand out. In some instances, it's a hand up. I need you all to be ambassadors of that statement when you leave this room, because many people think it's just a burdensome task to be involved with this, but this is a great opportunity for me to share this with you. I'm tired of looking at the newspapers, and every day I see a kid killed. You're all with me. I'm sure that there's not a ward in this city that has not been affected by that kind of craziness. But we have to start asking ourselves some key questions. Why do those things occur? For the most part, as we see the recent 20-some-odd now full classroom of kids killed, they're in areas of the city that have very little hope. High poverty, high unemployment. I personally believe that we, as a department, and the things that we do, provide a key to that economic engine that can help revitalize some of those communities. Call me crazy, call me insane, but I believe that. I believe that if we find those businesses that we can, one, help to grow their companies and to build capacity, if we find those companies that we can help grow to scale, and that means that as they grow, they're able to take on larger opportunity and do more things within their communities and hire more people, that those people will then be able to pay mortgages, send their kids to school. And if that kind of emotional thing doesn't get you, and it may not, because I got to pay my bills too, let's look at the last effect. If people are able to go to work every day, they're able to pay more money back into the tax base that runs this beautiful city of ours. So, let's say for the sake of argument that $2.8 billion that you saw of new monies every year that we spend on goods and services, maybe that becomes $4 billion when we account for the new tax base that's created by this new and expansive growth of people who are being employed. Statistics show that if a minority business is rooted in a community and they're given the opportunity, they will hire other people that look like them: Hispanic, Asian, Black, women. It's important that we look at this not as a giveaway, but as a mandate. If we're to get anything out of those communities, we must do this. Now, some of you who don't live in the city and don't see the vitality of that, those are new marketplaces. Those are new marketplaces. The west, the south sides of our city, those are new marketplaces, but they need development and cultivation. These programs do that. Thank you. Thank you. There's one convert. I got one convert. By way of certification, as I mentioned before, there are 5 different certification programs that the City of Chicago does. Just so you all know, the first 3 are creatures of ordinance by the City Council ordinance. They were created in order to allow the city to do its portion of creating that level playing field. The last 2 are creatures of the federal government and of the state. The presumptive groups that are protected or advanced under all of these ordinances are listed below. I won't read those out for you. The important thing to note is that in order to qualify, you must have at least a 51% ownership by a minority, women, or person with a disability in order to fit in these categories. Now, by way of historical reference, Again, I'm not going to focus on all 5. I'm going to stick with the MWBE program. That program started some 20-odd years ago. And let me, as a side note, too, say this to you. And there may be some folks in this room, and I'm not trying to hit anybody in the head with this statement. I had a person come up to me and say, I've been in the program for 15 years. There was a part of me that it hurt me when I heard that statement. I personally, we as the group from the Department of Procurement Services, we want to create an environment such that you can graduate from the program, okay? If you graduate from the program, to me that makes room for mama. Somebody else can slide right back in and get the value that you allegedly got out of that program. But I understand that some people are hesitant to graduate from the program because they don't know what's out there once they leave the program. That's where we come into play. We've got to take a look at what is the next logical step for someone that has graduated from the MWBE program. Because it's logical if we sit back and say if you're a small construction firm but you just happen to exceed now that gross net worth and you've got $2 million, you can't compete against the Walshes of the world. Come on, let's be honest. But we've got to look at what is fair. Let's look to see if we can create a small business initiative program such that when people graduate, they can compete against others that look like them from a cash receipt standpoint. It'll be a race, gender neutral program, but at least it's a way to protect and again grow scale so that now you can stay in that category, and we haven't figured it out yet, but stay in that category for the requisite period of time in order to move to the next level. Those are the kinds of innovative things that you challenge government to do, and I'm going to challenge you to work with us to develop. I'd also like to tell you, too, just because some of you may be concerned about the existing program and wondering, is it going away? Well, from the construction end of this program, the MWBE portion of the program was created in 2004, and it's due to sunset December 31st, 2009. I want to rest everyone's concerns. That program is not going away. There will be some tinkering with the program to make it better, because forgive me, I just don't see the problems associated with the program have not gone away. We're still working on those things right now. So that program is not going away. Last bullet point I wanted to show you too is the ordinance as well as the court decision identified those counties involved in the MWBE program. There may be an additional 2 counties that will add to that based on whatever movement occurs come 2009. Now, at the bottom of that sheet, I wanted to show we've got 2 sets of aspirational goals. On the construction side, we're looking at 24% minority involvement, 4% women. On the non-construction side, 25-5. I changed the non-construction side shortly after coming on to this position to bring it in line with some of the other sister agencies and their aspirational goals on those frontiers. Now, this chart shows us that there are over 1,600 firms in the MWBE program. I want to stop for a moment here. I want to make sure that we give every firm an opportunity to become certified, because all people will not be doing business with the City of Chicago. They use that certification for various reasons. But it's important for me to see that this occurs. I don't want to see the database, the pool of participants in that program reach 5,000, and I have opportunity for 2. I've got to find some logical vehicles that when people get into the program, they're just not there for 4 or 5 years, they see no value in it, and they leave out. Now, I'll be talking about some of those kinds of innovative thinking later on, but the next bullet shows you that from a prime standpoint, only 100 or so of those firms, those 1,600 firms, were able to participate as primes. Another 100 or so participated through a subcontractor type role. That means if we had an opportunity to sit here with a pencil and figure this thing out, more than 70% of the database of folks didn't get a chance to get a contract, weren't awarded a contract. We've got to figure out how to get more people in the game. You know, a friend of mine told me one day, he says, Montel, what you're looking at, you're looking at a lot of the small men and women firms that they've got a uniform on, and You know, their pants may be a little raggedy. It might be a hole back here on the side, and their shoulder pads are twisted a little bit. They've got a helmet, though they want to get in the game. They just want to get some grass on their pants. Under the current paradigm, many of those folks are sitting on the sidelines and they don't get a chance to get in the game. So I say that to say this. We've got to be more creative in getting people in the game. We've got to take a look at how do we do our procurements. What's the best way to get more people in the game? Maybe it's a different delivery system. And later on, as I reach the end of this presentation, we're going to be talking about some innovative ways to look at how we do construction. You know, tomorrow, if all goes well, and with the blessing of our chairman and the budget committee, we're going to be looking at advancing a resolution for construction management and design build as alternative ways to get more people in the game. So, as we look at the pie to my left, your right, I assume, we see the composition of the pie. 35% of the folks that are currently certified are African Americans, 30% women, 12% Asian Americans, and 23% Latino. With that said, certification is there. What's the stick and the carrot, for that matter, that we use to make sure that our prime vendors actually move forward with the commitments that they make in their contracts? Because you remember that statement when you were small and mama would say, talk is cheap. You got to put your money where your mouth is. Anybody can put something on a piece of paper and they can get that award, and all of a sudden now they're not following through. It takes a lot of little parts in this system to make sure that that thing works the way it's supposed to work once they sign that piece of paper. It's called a contract, by the way. And they're supposed to be following that. All right? So what is it that we do in order to make sure that occurs? Well, we've got a team of folks within the department whose purpose is to work with the vendor, to look at their plans for compliance, to look at how they're moving along with compliance. So it's both an assessment and a monitoring aspect to this. And I'll be frank with you, we rely a great deal too on our brothers and sisters in the sister agencies to assist us in the monitoring of these plans. You know, it's one thing to sit there and work through the contract, but we need personnel that are there on the ground, that understand the contracts, that are seeing the day-to-day activity of these things, and that can sometimes tap us to let us know that things aren't going according to plan. That's part of the duties of the compliance team. Now, the last thing on that list, because the others are pretty much self-explanatory, that's the thing that I hate to invoke the most. I don't want to invoke liquidated damages. It's not about a punishment thing to me. I think the more you punish, the more resentful people become to the process of trying to use that because they look at it as a hindrance and not a help. If we can work together, you'll see that there are other mechanisms we can use to ensure that we've got full participation. It may not mean that someone is directly involved, but maybe indirectly involved. How do we comply? As primes, how do we make sure that we comply? We can work with some of the smaller companies to joint venture with these folks. And I know for some folks here in this room, and they'll probably be watching this on CAN-TV, they hear joint venture. What are you talking about? They're going to be looking at my books? I get that. I go out, I meet with African Americans, Asians, Hispanics, and I talk about joint venturing. Women, I can't say that I haven't done that with you all because, for one, you do more joint venturing with each other for some reason. We've got to combine our resources in order to take on some of the opportunities that present themselves. It is better to be a part of something than a whole of nothing. A dear friend of mine said that to me once upon a time. Okay? It's better to be a part of something than a whole of nothing. It's working with firms to see what other subcontracting opportunities there are. Maybe from the package that you've been given, you can break out bigger shares of that in order to build capacity in a long-term partner. And lastly, as I spoke about just a few moments ago, there may not be a direct relationship as those first two show, but maybe there's an indirect relationship. Maybe it's possible that you could hire a female trucking company to transport the materials that need to go to the job site. By working together, we can figure out those solutions together. it benefits all of us if we can work through those types of details to ensure that that family is fed, that mortgage is paid, that kid goes to school. Challenges. And I told you, I'm not going to list out all these challenges. I don't know who's in this room. I might be the front page of the paper if I said all the challenges. But I will say this to you. We understand that we must create a more vendor-friendly environment. We've got to create an atmosphere that you want to do business with us. You know, I'm an old IBMer, and I shouldn't maybe mention names, but customer satisfaction runs in my blood. In this position, I have a multitude of customers, too many to mention, all of them just as lethal. But that just doesn't mean treating someone nicely on the phone when they call. It also means that we should be providing the tools to our citizens and to our vendors so that maybe you can't get a hold of a Montel Gayles to answer a pressing question, but maybe if you get online and we've got the right type of application tool, it answers your question. It gives you that level of satisfaction that you need, that your city is working for you. Increasing minority participation on city jobs. I just mentioned that we need to be more creative with the ways that we can bring about a solution to this kind of perplexing problem, and increasing the capacity of MWBs. Now, I want to share something with you. When I hear capacity, I used to, as an attorney, I used to think, well, don't they have the mental fortitude to do? No, it's not that kind of capacity, okay? From my experience, I've seen that a number of the businesses that come to us that actually get on the job site or awarded contracts, they're excellent craftspeople. They do an excellent job. If it's construction, they know how to hammer that nail. They know how to put up that plywood. If it's accounting, they do. We fall down sometimes in areas dealing with the backroom activities. The backroom activities. It's actually the business side of it. Now they've got a little commercial on TV. You probably saw where the guy's driving and the student driver, he's conducting the business as they're driving. The kids running all over stuff, running the buildings, the whole works. I smile at that because that's what I see. That's the value that a seasoned and developed company can provide to a smaller company, to help it along the way, to show it the do's and don'ts of the road so that they're not running over the cones of financial irresponsibility. How are we going to solve some of those issues? Well, although in these very trying times, governments across this country are being stressed for the limited resources to provide a certain high level of quality that all of us as Chicagoans expect. Let's face it. We know we got $5, but we want $25 worth of service, right? Well, we are putting in some, although we're strained, we are putting in some technology that will assist both us and the citizens to get that kind of transparency I just mentioned. We've got this thing that we affectionately call C2, compliance and certification, that will be going in. It will allow people at some point in time to get on and see where they are in a certification cycle so that they're not calling, wondering what's going on. But it'll also do some other things too to help us streamline our operations. If any of you, and I'm sure most of you have dealt with the city, most folks would say the bureaucracy is crazy. We need to limit that. We need to work as a group in order to streamline that and to make it more efficient. I also wanted to share with you, and Madam Chair, again, hopefully I'm not speaking too much out of school because I got to get blessings for all this stuff. We're going to be looking at the reconstitution of the Affirmative Action Advisory Committee. And I wanted to share with you at this point some of the names that are going to be recommended so that if they're here, they could be recognized as well. Myself and Judy Martinez will also be a part of this board, along with Commissioner Tom Byrne from the Chicago Department of Transportation. The members of the MBE community, Robert Blackwell Jr. from EKI, Christine Chung from Horizon Contractors, Omar Duque from Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Cheryl Jackson of the Chicago Urban League. Members representative of the WBE community, Pam McDonough from D'Angelo McDonough Construction. And then there will be 3 at-large members from the contracting community: Deborah Jennings Johnson from BP Amico, Mike Farron from O'Neill Construction, and Sarah Nava Garvey from Boeing. So that group will be put into place, and I'm looking forward to that group being put into place because it will be a sounding board for our operations as we look to do new and more innovative things to rectify some of the ills of our current and past purchasing activities. So, with that said, that's all I have for today.
That was terrific. If you have any questions, there's a microphone there, and just go up and state your name and your question, and Montel will answer it. Yes, sir.
Mr. Gayles, my name is Ernest Wong, Site Design Group. I had a question regarding the process of design build that you are encouraging with the city. Specifically, how is that going to work? I guess, what was the process that you used at the Public Building Commission in order to do that, and how is that going to work in order to increase MWBE participation?
Very, very good question. One, I think the key benefit of design build is going to be really looking at dollar savings. If I've got $5 in my pocket, I'm going to go to the marketplace and say, look, I want to build this house. I have $5. Who can build it for $5? With that said, now looking at the minority participation, what I'd like to see is on a case-by-case basis, we'll take a look at what's going to be built. What is it that we're looking at building? We've got to be better students of this game. We have to do better analysis of what the marketplace looks like. We have to be students looking at various trades to see how we might be able to up particular individual percentages, aspirational percentages within that category to see how we can get more minority involvement. So that will be done on a case-by-case basis. So if we're doing some vertical construction, to give you an example, and we know that we've got a high concentration of African-American masonry firms, we may look to boost our individual participation in that level for a design-build project to higher percentages well beyond the 25, okay? In order to one, build capacity and hopefully to build scale for that particular job. Then the task will be, how do we keep that ball rolling on the next job or next opportunity?
Hi, Sharice Witherspoon, Witherspoon Marketing Group. My question is...
I went to college with her. I have full disclosure, full disclosure. Full disclosure.
And I'm very proud of you. The city seems to be moving more from RFPs in the standard sense to RFQs and building pools. Does that seem to be working for MWBEs, or is it too early to tell?
You know what? It's too early for this guy to tell. As I mentioned before during the course of the presentation, I'm 73 days old in this spot. And I'll be frank with you. We are doing analysis like crazy with the limited tools that we have. But the one thing that I want to do, and I maybe kind of glossed over this, is we're going to take a look at those categories outside of the construction area because we kind of know what that world looks like. We're going to look at the other categories to see how we can utilize target market opportunities better. Okay. And I'm not fixed to a certain dollar amount in that area. So, for instance, if we do our analysis, as I mentioned before on this side, and we find that we have firms that are strong, that are solid firms that can take on contracting opportunities greater than $500,000 to $1 million, we'll look at that as a target market opportunity. What's in it for me, I want to see how we can take firms, and I'll be frank, as much as I want to help everybody on that 1,600 list, we must be realistic. Let's find those companies, too, that have the greatest ability to gain strength and scale, and see how we can grow those companies in order to grow something maybe 5 to 10 years down the road that we have no idea what God can bring.
And so when you're looking at professional services, can you make a special effort to look beyond architecture and engineering? And
without question,
okay.
Without question. Let me say this to answer the rest of your question. As I mentioned before, when I first got in the door, the numbers were 16.9 and 4.5 respectively on the professional services side for minority and women involvement. I moved quickly to make that 25.5. So within a short few months, we should be seeing the work, the effort behind that to see how those numbers are going to be affected.
Good afternoon. Gloria Castillo, President of Chicago United. And as you know, I am so thrilled to hear you talk about building minority businesses of scale. It's so important to our economy.
Well, some of this I stole from you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have two questions related to sustainability of the program. The first is, you mentioned $927 million in awarded contracts.
Yes.
And there's often a great disparity between the dollars awarded and the dollars actually spent. Are you going to, the first part of my question is, are you going to track that so that we can get a real sense of the value to the minority business
Yes, and
community?
forgive me, because what you're showing me right now is I spoke too fast about a point that I raised earlier when I talked about that technology element that we're going to bring to the citizens as well as to some of our users. And I talked about C2. I spoke more so about the certification portion of that than I did the compliance portion of that. The compliance portion of that will allow us to see the actual dollars spent. And I think what that does too is it raises the bar for everybody. It shows us at that moment where we are in the mix of compliance, stuff that we don't have today.
Right, great. If that's in progress, that,
Yes, it is.
even as the contracts are in progress, that will make a
Yes,
huge
because
difference.
let's face it, as you and I both know, it's very difficult to get compliance once the project is 65, 70% completed, especially if those numbers are vast. Now we're looking at a situation where it's liquidated damages. I don't want to be in that situation. I want to help the vendor work through this thing so they see it's not a hindrance.
And then the second part of my sustainability question is, first of all, thank you for that, because I'm really thrilled to hear that. The second part is, you talked about the sunsetting of the program and that it won't go away. But one of the things that we've experienced in this county is Cook County didn't do a disparity study, and that was the downfall of the Cook County, or at
Yes.
least a component in
Yes.
the program. Do we currently have a disparity study in process so that we have the evidence for federal courts?
Good question. That's in progress. That's in progress. We've got a team of folks in place. Admittedly, I want to be able to tell you more about that, but I need to get an update. I just met with folks maybe about a month ago and was told a preliminary plan, draft of where we're going to be from a research and a reporting standpoint, but that is in progress.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Excuse me. My name is Kazi from Delta Engineering, local minority firm in Chicago. We have been hearing about this privatization of these international companies taking over. Recently, we heard about Midway Airport. And I would like to know what kind of impact it will have on the minority companies. Would that be a requirement, or would that be a goal, or will that be business as usual, or something different we should know, and how will it impact the minority companies, the privatization of these things?
You know, and I'm going to be honest with you, my friend, you're going over my pay scale on that one. I can't answer that, because my primary responsibility is procuring services for folks and not really setting the strategy for outsourcing some of the things that we do from a departmental standpoint. But I'm sure one of the future speakers that comes up here in months ahead will be able to address that question better than I. Thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause. On behalf of the City Club, it was City Club mug.
Thank you.
All right, a one-year membership, and the history of the City Club of Chicago.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.